This is DW News Africa. Coming up, Ebola outbreak may be the worst ever, according to Africa CDC. As cases rise and the virus spreads, misinformation is also spreading. Now, the fight against the virus has become a fight against disbelief. Also coming up, will South Africa see another youth uprising? 50 years after the Soweto protests, the country's young people are at a crossroads. Nearly 2 in 3 can't find work, and the frustration is growing. Hello there, I am Eddy Micah Jr, and you are welcome to the program. Will the latest Ebola outbreak be the most deadly? Well, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention warns this one may be the worst on record. So far, there have been more than 800 confirmed cases and over 190 deaths. And the outbreak is far from contained. In just over a month, parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo are reeling. Ituri province, near the border with Uganda, is hardest hit, with some cases emerging in Uganda's capital, Kampala. Aid groups say the disease is spreading faster than they can respond. There's no vaccine for this strain of Ebola, and misinformation is rampant, as many people simply don't believe Ebola is real.
Friends and family of a late Ebola victim have pushed past police and medics in hazmat suits and taken the victim's coffin and highly contagious remains. They're unimpressed with the massive effort to contain Ebola. They just want the body of their loved one. Police introduced tear gas to try to regain control, but then chaos, riddled by the sound of gunfire. The coffin in the middle of it all holds an Ebola-ravaged body that probably could not be more contagious. Health workers have pleaded for understanding, to no avail. The coffin is eventually taken away for a strictly controlled family burial, but like the tear gas in the air, mistrust against authorities lingers, to the point where as many as 1 in 3 people believe Ebola is not real. Enter journalist Samuel Habamungo. He and his colleagues at Medelleo Radio in eastern DR Congo are dedicating untold hours a day to Ebola awareness.
The Ebola disease does indeed exist, especially in the Miti Morhesa health zone. People do not want to understand. That is why I am here, raising awareness among the population not to rely on rumors.
On social media, tracking information and disinformation is a very different animal. Changuza Habari is a fact-checking platform, and there is a lot that needs checking.
On TikTok, there are already people who are heavily involved in misinformation. So they want to get a lot of views, and that makes them very productive in spreading it. Unfortunately, their videos are also widely shared and liked. We believe that we must also focus a lot on this network, TikTok, by publishing messages there that provide real information and also reach this audience that is very connected on TikTok, so they do not fall into the misinformation that is widespread there.
Less tech-savvy, but no less effective, is the secretary of this tightly packed displaced persons camp, holding thousands who fled violence near the Rwandan border.
As you can see, I have these posters to raise awareness among camp residents about how to protect themselves against Ebola. People here do not want to believe the disease exists, so I'm explaining to them that it is real.
One man in the most affected region, this pastor, has a very personal story of salvation. He survived this strain of Ebola that still has no vaccine. As a result, there may be no better voice to spread the word.
I am the first case. So whenever others feel unwell, they always come back to ask me how I felt before going to the hospital. Some accept it, but others don't believe it. They claim I was paid off and didn't actually have the disease.
Pastor Kazareka says he will be a champion of what is true and real about Ebola, even as the race to contain the deadly virus moves into overdrive.
Let's get more from Dr. Jean Kaseya, Director General of Africa's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program. I have to say, the last time we spoke, I was a bit hopeful. But now I'm not too sure, because you've warned that this outbreak could become worse than the previous deadly outbreaks in West Africa and the DRC. Well, we know that that combined killed thousands of people. What has led you to make such a gloom and doom assessment?
Yes, this assessment is evidence-based. You know, we compared the trend at 3 weeks after the declaration. We saw that it was more than all other outbreaks that were declared. And as you know, that yesterday, 15th of June, was 4 weeks after the declaration. And then we zoom in, we saw that this outbreak, we have more cases, more deaths, if we compare with all other outbreaks at 4 weeks of the declaration, after 4 weeks of declaration. It means if we don't stop this outbreak now, knowing that we are in an urban area, we are in an area where we don't have security we need, it means we have rebels, and we are also in an area where we have so many activities like mining. That one is not helping. On top of that, for each confirmed case, we must have around 40 contacts. And now that we have more than 800 confirmed cases, we are expecting to have 32,000 contacts, but we just have 6,000 contacts. It means we are missing almost around 26,000 people who are in the community. We don't know where they are. We don't know if they are contaminating others. This is what is the alarm for us.
Right. So to add to that, what is even more alarming is that the Red Cross, for instance, says that the outbreak has not yet reached its peak and that the crisis could last up to a year before it is over. I mean, it seems definitely far from over. Do you have the funding, personnel, logistics to sustain a one-year response, if that's the case?
Today, we had a meeting led by President Evariste Ndayishimiye, the president of Burundi, who was also leading the African Union, attended by African head of state and a number of partners. We managed to get pledges around $910 million. But I was saying to our leaders, if we don't provide these funds now, in the next 2-3 weeks, we'll be requesting more than $1 billion. In the next 1 to 2 months, we'll be requesting around $3 to $4 billion, and so and so. It means now that our partners and our members say they pledge funds, we need this money quickly to see if we can reverse the trend that is there. Because if we miss the next 2 weeks, I think it will become a little bit a challenge for us, especially if we have other zones that will be affected.
Right. I mean, having all that money for sure will be key to tackling this. But I also understand that one of the biggest challenges appears to be trust, right? Some communities reportedly believe Ebola has been invented. They don't really believe in it. Others resist safe burial practices, which is definitely, if burial practices are not done well, it will make the Ebola spread even further and faster. How damaging is the misinformation problem?
You know, mistrust is real. I visited Ituri. And this mistrust is coming from a combination of so many factors. The first one, population in Ituri, they are saying to me, how far can we think that after 19 years of this Ebola Butubungyo, we don't have vaccine, we don't have medicine? They are even thinking that in some Western countries, we have these solutions, as it was the case during the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. It was when the American doctor was sick, then they discovered that there were some solutions. This is the first reason of mistrust. The second reason is, you know, when partners are talking about millions of dollars, like today, these communities, they are also listening. They know that partners are talking about $910 million. But for them, they are thinking, how are we getting in our communities? If they don't see something coming to their communities, for them, they think it becomes business. This is a second reason of mistrust. The third reason of mistrust is how we are communicating with them. Who is communicating with them? We need to use local people. We need to use people from the community. And we need to tell them the truth about this disease. I think the combination of all of these factors created mistrust, and we need to correct that.
Right. Just a reminder for those watching that this outbreak is caused by the Bundibugyo strain. And as things stand now, there's currently no approved vaccine or specific treatment. How close or far are we from securing vaccines and treatment?
Yes, we are working on that. And today, during the meeting we have with head of state, we discussed some candidate vaccine that we have. We discussed some candidate therapeutics that we have. Currently, we cannot say when exactly we can get that, but we hope to accelerate clinical trials maybe by July, August, and to see how maybe we can get something by end of this year. But I cannot give a clear commitment that in a specific date we can have it.
Before you go, neighboring countries, including Uganda, they are on high alert. Uganda, like Rwanda, they closed their borders to the DRC to prevent the spread. How concerned are you about regional spread overall? And what should countries bordering the DRC be doing differently right now?
First, let me repeat what we are saying. Closing borders is not what we, Africa Citizen and WHO, we are recommending. What we are recommending is to strengthen, the surveillance capacity to make sure that everyone who's coming, entering a country or exiting a country is tested. Ebola is not COVID. For Ebola to test someone, we need the person to have symptoms, to be sick, then it will be positive. It means we need to continue to do a follow-up to make sure that we are screening people who are coming or we are going, and we are putting in place a QR code at continental level. This kind of information is what we need. But why are we closing borders? And I was demonstrating today that Uganda is getting more than $1 billion per year from Ituri. And the Minister of Trade of Uganda said, this is the most important region where we are doing trade in Eastern African Community and COMESA. It means blocking and stopping movement of people. It's also a harm to the economy, not only of DRC, but of Uganda. And this is the case for all other countries. We are not recommending to lock borders today.
Right. I know I said that was your last question, but I really have to throw this in there because there are people listening and they are feeling, okay, so what lies ahead? From what you've said, it just spells a bit of doom. What's your final words to people watching to allay fears or concerns that this could sort of blow out to even be possibly a pandemic? What's your final words?
Look, I'm first led by science. I'm leading Africa CDC, led by science. Second, I'm also a leader of a community, 1.5 billion people. What I'm saying to my people today, the outbreak exists, the disease is serious, but we have knowledge, we have tools to stop that. What we are lacking was some commodities, some areas of support, and we hope we can get that very quickly. Next week, like Africa Citizen, we are deploying 120 people in the field. We are also deploying a number of materials. I think if we continue to sustain this effort, working with government and improving on our communication aspects and improving in other areas like safe barrier, I think we can stop the outbreak. But for now, we are still facing some challenges. And there is hope.
There is hope. Dr. Jean Kaseya, Director General of Africa's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Thank you, and sincerely all the best to you and your team.
Thank you so much.
"50 years ago, the students of Soweto marched into history. On June 16, 1976, they protested an education system under apartheid in South Africa designed to limit their future. Many paid with their lives as police opened fire. But while that generation fought for the right to learn, the current generation is struggling to find work and earn a living. With youth unemployment among the highest in the world, this year's Soweto commemoration highlighted the challenges facing young people. Here's more from DW's Diane Hawker Kalubi.
"50 years ago, Soweto students met here to demand change. Decades later, hundreds returned with a similar demand. On June 16, 1976, this street corner was the site of immense pain. This is where apartheid police shot students who were asking for fair education. Seth Mazibuko was there on the day. At just 16, he was one of the protest leaders and saw his friends gunned down.
And then the next thing, they started shooting.
The apartheid government tried to force black students to learn in Afrikaans, the language of the ruling oppressive regime. But this face-off was never just about language. It was about a system that limited their future, keeping black people's education deliberately second-rate. 176 people were killed that day. The protests spread across South Africa, leaving over 500 people dead. That moment became a symbol that still runs deep for young South Africans today. Hundreds gathered this week to commemorate those who fought. The plan to finish the walk started in 1976. Today, young South Africans face a different fight. Education is now available, but jobs are not.
We are pushing for young people to go to school. They must be educated. But at what reason? Because after being educated, you are unemployed.
More than 30% of working-age South Africans don't have a job. And for people aged 25 to 34, it climbs to around 40%.
People are still treated differently on the job market. If you don't know someone white as a black person, you won't get that job. They want us to have qualifications. You go to university, but when you get to the job market, they tell you that you don't have the necessary skills. What kind of skills do you expect young people to have when they just left school?
Opangwenya was also a key figure in 1976 and says he's worried young people are just as frustrated today as they were back then.
The signs are there that people have had enough. And I think our government is misreading the situation. They are spinning themselves into innocence. And I think people have reached a point. It's a matter of time.
Half a century on, the walk in Soweto was finally completed. Unlike back then, young people here hope that things can change and that once again, South Africa's future rests in their hands.
All right, for more on this, let's bring in Zuleika Patel, a South African anti-racism and social justice activist and best-selling author. Hello, Zuleika. Great to have you here. Now, it's very impressive. You were just 13 years old when you stood up to your school over the right to wear your hair naturally. When you look back now, what made a teenager decide that silence wasn't an option?
Thank you so much for having me. Looking back 10 years later, at the time I was 13, turning 14, one of the biggest things that motivated my activism is that it's more than just hair. It was never just about hair. Hair is one symptom of a deeper injustice, and that injustice being institutionalized racism. And being a young person born and raised in the democratic dispensation of South Africa, it is incredibly important that young people continue the fight against racism in our country, because it's still attached to the fabric of South African society. Just because racism is no longer a part of our legislation, that doesn't mean systems have changed and people have changed. And now my generation carries that mission in order to ensure that systems change as well as people change.
Right. Just like the generation 50 years ago. What does June 16 actually mean to you and your generation?
June 16 for my generation is more than just remembrance, and it's more than just commemoration. It calls for conviction, it calls for action, and it calls for us taking a step into ensuring that we continue the fight against, firstly, racism as young people. Secondly, fighting for a better education system, just like the class of 1976. And fighting against unemployment, which is one of the biggest injustices currently plaguing South Africa. We've got the highest unemployment rate in the entire world. And we have so many young people that are incredibly talented, that are qualified with post-matric qualifications. And what we need to see is young people being included in the economy.
Right. Now that's the thing. Naturally, young people are trying to make their voices heard, but many of them are complaining that when they speak up, they are simply not heard by governments, leaders, and the people in power. Has that been your experience? What do you make of that?
That has been my experience throughout the 10 years of my activism, experiencing ageism within multilateral spaces, within spaces that are spaces of government where one is engaging with stakeholders or politicians. That has been the case, that people think that a young person's place is at a grassroots level or in the streets leading a protest or a march, and that a young person's place is not at a decision-making table. And for me, I believe that young people's activism is not meant to just remain on the streets at a peaceful march or protest or on a grassroots level. Young people have to be included at decision-making tables. We need to see young people's participation in the government, young people's economic participation as well.
Right. Well said there. Now, look, in the report we played earlier, one of the 1976 protesters told us there are signs that people have had enough and that the government may be underestimating the level of public frustration, adding that it's a matter of time. What do you think could happen if young people feel they are constantly not heard?
Well, it's only a matter of time till we see an uprising from young people within South Africa, because young people are incredibly frustrated with the current unemployment crisis. Poverty is plaguing many homes within our country and is affecting particularly young people, child-headed homes, and it's only a matter of time until we see an uprising from young people within this country, just like the one we saw a couple of years back, about 11 to 12 years back with Fees Must Fall. Because firstly, not seeing enough action from the government in terms of ensuring that we decrease the unemployment rates in our country, the youth unemployment rate. We're not seeing enough participation as well as commitment from the government. And we're also not seeing enough from the government side to ensure that we see young people's economic participation. Every year we experience a new financial year and the injustice just grows and plagues more young people's lives.
Right. Final words from you before you go. I'm just wondering if there's a flip side to all of this, despite the challenges we've talked about. Is there anything that gives you hope about South Africa's future and the role young people can play in shaping it?
I am hopeful because hope is the only thing that we can hold on to, especially in times of crisis. And I'm hopeful because South Africa is filled with incredible young people, incredibly talented young people, incredible young people who are intellectuals, and young people that are not willing to turn a blind eye towards injustice. South Africa has that caliber of young people.
Right. And you are the leader of that gang, I'd say. That's just from my take. Thank you very much, Zuleika Patel, South African anti-racism and social justice activist, and not forgetting best-selling author. Thank you. And that's how we wrap it up. But before we go, let's leave you with pictures from the FIFA World Cup as African fans cheer their teams on. And yes, let's start with my beloved country, Ghana. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.